Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Mighty Dell Web3 Career Series, a day of a Web3 art founder and CEO. Let me introduce myself again. I'm Pauline, the host tonight and also the marketing lead at Mighty Dell. Before I introduce our guests, I would like to take a moment to give you a brief introduction about Mighty Dell. Mighty Dell is a talent incubator aiming to connect high quality talents with opportunities in the Web3 industry. We bridge the gap between skilled professionals and positions across the Web3 landscape and offer the latest insights in this field. Through our Web3 Career Series interviews, we would like to provide insights for your career paths. I'll also like to invite you to share your insights after this interview on Twitter afterward. Let's grow together. Can't wait to introduce our guest tonight, Grace. She's the founder and CEO of ArtWise to share her inspiring journey in Web3. Hi, Grace.
Hi, hello, hi everyone. It's my honor to be here.
Nice to meet you again. So we
Yep,
can't wait to hear your personal journey. Could you introduce a little bit more about AdWise to our audience?
yep, sure. ArtWise is our company we founded in back in 2022, and right now we're working on bringing physical blue chip art to blockchain as fractional investment and asset-backed lending.
That's very nice. So before founding AdWise, you have work experience across different roles and countries. Do you mind to briefly introduce yourself and share how your journey in the art world begins?
Yeah, sure. That would date back to 2014. My family, my father is an art collector, but he's not like a very important one. He was just casually collecting, and so that brought me into the art scene. We would hang out with the artists, and I started curating. And for them, starting from small art projects and then to bigger projects, collaborating with the galleries when I was staying in Beijing, China, and as well as Shanghai Biennale. Then fast forward to 2016, I moved to New York and started my own project. It's called Grace Lau Projects, and we hosted a few art shows for the Chinese artists to give them exposures in New York. And after that, I moved to Korea for a few months for another art project before I came back to Hong Kong for good. And because I'm from Hong Kong, and so eventually I want to come back to Hong Kong and do something for good here in Hong Kong. So that basically conclude my 10 plus years of art industry journey. And after I came back to Hong Kong, I started working with high net worth individuals and manage their art collections. I would buy and sell for them, either on in the private market or in auction. And because when I came back to Hong Kong in 2017, the individual art consultant and advisor at my age, at back then I was early 30s, was quite rare comparing to the Western countries. So that demand, I realized that demand was there, but there were not many people working as role like me. So that captured me a few quite important clients in Hong Kong. And fast forward a few years later, I got experience working with them. I got my network. So yeah, I felt like it was a time. So I moved on and started my company.
That's a quite smooth career path because you're raised and born in an artistic family, and then you start your own art company. But how, how, why after more than a decade advising art collectors and working with major action house, what sparked your curiosity about blockchain? Because throughout your whole life, I can hear you mention about Web3 blockchain, but what's the reason inspired you to start Artwise?
Um, I always wanted to have my company, and I know it sounds like my family is giving me a lot of support, but that's actually not the case. Because they they just give me the fundamental resources like education and food and shelter, but um they're not always around. So my my decision whether it's a bigger one or smaller ones in my life is all up to me. So I've been always quite adventurous um and bold, I would say. So I started my first company when I was 24, also in Beijing, and I graduated from UK and came back to not in Hong Kong because my family moved to Beijing at that time. And I graduated in LCF, London College of Fashion, in photography, by the way. So they wanted me to move to Beijing for at that time Beijing was, booming, the economy was really good. It was ahead. So we moved there and I started a platform selling my friend back then in London College of Fashion their designer pieces, including jewelry and fashion garments. Because to when I was 24, that was 2015. So there wasn't a lot of platform or channels selling especially designer stuff there. So that was my first company, and luckily we got traction and we got revenue very quickly. Thank you, and like thanks to social media. And I managed to sell the company to a PE fund, in my 20s. So that gave me a lot of courage. I know it was a time, it wasn't really me, but I was still very encouraged, and I made me think that I am a business material. So I guess all the decision after that sort of based on that confidence. If I want to do something, I'll just go ahead. I mean, the worst case, I'll just go back to the beginning, right? And
Yes, yes. Yep. You're such a young
sorry.
entrepreneur at the early 20. You already sold your company. You already started your company and sold your company. It's very amazing.
Yeah, and then after that, around that time, that was the time I got into art as well. And so I would say I'm not it's been more than 10 years in art industry, but I never defined myself as an art person, and I don't paint. I don't, I have no artistic sense except for photography, which was my major. Um, and I always want to do something different. So a lot of people around me are in AI, in blockchain, and in finance. And yeah, I just always think that, there is something to those industries and art. There's some intersection, but we just haven't figured out how. And I want to be that person. And also, like 10 years in art industry, I felt like it's a industry that is way too old. I it's a lot of things has to change, and again, people are still figuring out, and I hate to say that, but there are gatekeepers like every other industry. They are benefiting from the current system and they don't want to change anything, but they eventually they get older, right? And eventually they would, they're going to be gone. So I think as a younger generation, it's our obligation to really try something new. Doesn't matter if it's gonna work, but at least we tried, and maybe we can make some wave, and there'll be butterfly effect. And yeah, that's how I thought about it. So yeah, so when I saw blockchain with art first show up, I thought that was a really good idea, where a lot of people in the art industry are um quite reluctant to the idea because they felt like, oh no, that's not what we are, that's not what we are doing. It's such a disgrace. But yeah, I just felt like we need that kind of change and innovation.
Yeah, right. That's quite true, especially when you're talking about ads and blockchain. They're totally different industry. They're just like the north and the south part. And from our previous chat, I know that your turning point is after COVID. Can you share the story with us on how you know about blockchain and after COVID, why you're getting involved in blockchain with ArtWise?
Yeah, sure. That is not as juicy as my career path, though. It's so I started a company in 2022, and it is with a network of art dealers and collectors. Because starting from COVID, we're not able to travel, and I'm sure if anyone has ever worked in art knows that the the most important part of our job is to travel around and going to fairs and sharing information and getting informations. But when during COVID, that was not able to happen. So I created a group to connect my liaisons around the world, like including Europe and America and Korea, Japan. We would share information in the group, and occasionally we would facilitate them making and matching deals for them, and that turned into quite a major part of my work during that time. So I thought I might, just start a company around that. So I founded a company with an idea of the LinkedIn and Craigslist for the art people. And and looking back, I feel like that's not such a good idea, but I don't know why I was so convinced at that time. So I pitched an idea to Cyberport, in Hong Kong, and they admitted us as one of the CCMF program participant. So we spent half year with Cyberport and graduated. And during that time, that was my first exposure to the startup scene and the tech scene, and they really inspired me and encouraged me on exploring to Web3 and blockchain aspect to my business. Yeah, that's how everything starts.
Yeah, just some add up. Cyberport as an institution in Hong Kong that group a lot of startups and founders together, so they share ideas and give support to others. That's why maybe one of the reasons that bring Grace into blockchain as well. So transitioning from a traditional art industry to a very exciting Web3 art project, you must come across a lot of challenges. Could you take a chance to uh, share about the work and the challenges of as a Web3 project CEO? Can you start by telling us how's your typical day look like for you?
Uh, yeah, my day is pretty so there are two types of my day. Um, I would say I consolidate my meetings into 1 or 2 days in a week. Because for me that's so like by the way, my MBTI is INTJ, so I'm like extremely structured and extremely um how do I put it? Like planned out if I can. So in order to save time for myself and the people that I'm meeting, I consolidate, like I would say, 6 to 8 meetings in 2 days of a week, usually in midweek, like Wednesday or Thursday. And after meeting, I get one day, like Friday, to send out the emails after the meetings and follow-ups. And over the weekend, I would think about the meetings and digest everything, and do some plannings in my head. And so Monday, Tuesday, I can start working on myself again, on the materials and on the information that I gathered over, Wednesday and Thursday. So that's how my week looked like. Um, and for days, it really looks like any office worker. I would say, like, wake up, do some meditation, do some workout, and start working, sitting in front of my desk at 9 a.m. sharp, and handling the most important things. And yeah, and afternoon I would do more planning and mapping out and thinking, the heavy lifting works. And I try to finish work before 5, 6 p.m. Because I do believe being happy and work-life balance is the most important, because if I'm not happy, if I feel like I'm always overworking, then I don't want to do it. So yeah, that's how my day looks like typically.
Yeah, that's quite busy for you, especially for a person with MBTI like you. It's very rare. I mean, like talking about balancing of life, I've also asked about because you're still working as an art consultant, grounded in a traditional industry. So how do you balance your role in as an art consultant as well as a Web3 project founder?
Um, it's actually quite I don't feel too much stress from the balance, because I manage my own time, and most of the time I'm pretty flexible. So the only part is that I think I shifted to almost shifted 95% of the time to ArtWise since 2023, I would say, 1 year after I founded the company, because I just realized it's too much work, and you just have to like really focus on your company when you're having a startup. And I still manage my previous art clients, and apparently I can't handle too much, so I told some of them that I'm not charging you retainer fee anymore, because before that I worked with them typically on retainer basis. They would pay an annual advisory fee to me, and then there would be commissions on buying and selling, and special projects. So I turned down most of the retainer basis clients, and just to focus on my startup. And so yeah, that's how I balance it. Basically, change my role.
Okay, so basically there's no balancing between your previous job and your as a founder. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true because when you see there's a trend in the market and you really want to default in your project, it's like slowing down, it's not allowed, especially RWA is a great trend in the market. So yeah, talking about RWA, it is the hottest trend recently, and there are various RWA, including properties, stocks, golds, and among them, you choose blue chip art. It's a very unique art asset class, and although I know it's from your background, you choose art. But actually, not many of us know what blue chip art is. Could you help us to introduce blue chip art?
Yeah, of course. Um, Blue chip. So two parts of this question. I think it's an excellent question that our investors is also asking the same questions all the time. Blue chip art is any art that holds a substantial investment value. And the way we define that, there's many different ways to define it. And if you search online, there's a lot of different articles explaining how do you define that. But in our protocol, in our standard, we take the institutional support, the artists with global institutional support, being collected or show in major museums like MoMA, Tate Modern, M Plus, and with at least 2 decades of consistent price appreciation track record publicly. And the track record I explained to Pauline when we met before. Some of the artwork would show up in auction once in a while, and making histories, making records. But that's not the factor. The factor is the price has to be consistent. That's the key. It can be every 2 years, it can be every year, it can be every 3 years, because some artists don't really have that kind of supply, because when collector have it, they don't want to sell it, they just keep it. So it doesn't have to be oftenly on the auction, but it has to be consistent. And another key point is it has to be world famous, like everyone knows about them. Not everyone, just it has to be famous, like it has to be um like Picasso, like Monet, everyone knows about it. And the reason why is that the price of art is based on demand and supply, the relationship of demand and supply and consensus. When something is valuable to five people, it doesn't mean it's valuable. But when something is valuable to 500 500,000 people, it is probably very valuable. So yeah, world famous is another element as well. So we when we assess the collection that we are taking on board to the protocol, the standard is even more harsh than auction houses, because fundamentally auction houses they act like an agent. They're selling the works, they're doing the marketing, they make sure the works can be auctioned in a higher prices. But we operate in differently. We taking the art as collateral for lending, for asset-backed lending. So if anything goes wrong, we it's very risky for us. That's why our standard is even higher.
Yeah, true. Especially from your word, I can tell that there are two characteristics for blue chip art in the traditional market. One is illiquid and exclusive. And I see you define the main challenges that art collector are facing from the traditional art market. And it should also be the pain point of your project. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, sorry. I think I missed that part, in the last question. The reason why we're picking specifically blue chip to turn that into tokens, turn that into RWA, is because we when we first started um developing the idea, obvious we are not the first company to turn art into RWA, right? There's multiple projects, but um but they either turning something, we would call it um not as important as um or not a legit financial product. The reason so in most cases, blue chip art is less volatile than real estate. That is something not a lot of people know about. So we're really focusing on solving the illiquidity of art as an asset, and also to mitigate the risk of art as an asset. So in that terms, we have to choose very, very specific category of art that meets this requirement. Because if essentially we're taking the art as a financial product, and that's why we're focusing on this category.
Yeah, I see. So among your clients with the owner of blue chip art, which type of real life liquidity needs to stand out the most? Is that like short-term capital, estate planning, or exhibition related cash flow?
So our clients are mostly um second generation of the wealthy families, or third or second or third generations. So their family might have a quite important collection or piece of some pieces of artwork that worth a lot of money, but they they might not need it, or they might not even like it. So they want to have the liquidity to support their business. So usually they want to have access to the money, to the cash flow through their assets, whether it's real estate or even jewelry, or some of our clients, they have important collection of wine and liquor as well. So anything for them can be a source of cash flow to support their other operations, like their business or their other investments. And not much for estate planning so far, because we focus on younger clients, and not much on exhibition costs so far, but that will be our next stage of focus. Because in the beginning, we focused on private collections and private foundations, and next stage we are looking to work with museums to tokenize their collections, so that they can utilize their collection for operation, for exhibition cost.
Yeah, Grace already exposed their next stage of planning for ArtWise, but I would like to focus on the current stage now. So many of the traditional collectors and institutions, maybe not that much, the second-air collectors maybe remain cautious about blockchain. So how do you approach them through education and trust building in those conversations?
Um, Yeah, I mean, it's not appropriate for me to say this, but we don't educate. We, as a startup, we don't have the resources and time and energy to start a campaign or anything. But I'm sure at some point we have to do it. But it's just at the moment our focus is really on finding out who are the clients that's ready to go with us, and there are of course not everyone is comfortable with the idea that turning their valuable generational art into tokens, and there's a lot of questions being raised about ownership, custody, legal, and stuff like that. So we just have to focus on the people that's already interested in the idea and just have a little bit concern about the details and the operation. Those are our target at the moment. Yep.
Ah, I see. That makes you much easier for a startup project at an early stage. So talking
It's not
about,
it's not easy at all. It's not, trust me, it's not easy. But but
yeah, it's
but
tough.
yeah, but it's the I guess it's the strategy, because to provide the best solution for people that's already interested in the solution is much more important for us at this stage, instead of just trying to grab everyone's attention. So yeah, that's at least that's how I think about it.
Yeah, that's a great insight from a founder because you see, they will always founder like most needed to be solved problem at the moment. And though it's challenging, but we do it like step by step. That's great. Have already released a little bit of their later projects, maybe cooperate with me museum or other institution. But before that, I would like to ask a little bit more about the business model at Wise, because unlocking liquidity without losing ownership is one of the biggest challenges in art market. So how does ArtWise makes this possible in practice?
So that's the core value of our business, to allow art owners have access to liquidity without giving out without forcing to sell their artwork. And typically in a market condition that's not very positive, which is right now. And so the first, when we first have this idea of taking our financing on blockchain, it was when our client in the community starting to reach out to us to sell their family collections, and a lot of them are from Europe. So from my 10 years of industry experience, that is quite rare. I mean, we usually have quite a balance buy and sell inquiries from the secondary market, from the private market. But back in early 2024, the balance just doesn't make sense. Everyone's looking to sell, but no one's buying. And in a market like that, it's even harder to sell, because the buyers just retreat, right? So we start exploring our financing through traditional channels like private banks, or individual lenders, and found out it was really inadequate. The procedure was slow, and it works in a single, um, like if you are sourcing lenders for one piece of art, then you have to actually find the lender that understand this piece of art and is willing to borrow money against it. But how we change our solution is different from traditional, is that we build our own liquidity pool from different lenders, and we manage that pool, and then we set up a protocol that actually make assessment and analyze of the art pieces that we're taking on board. So we make sure whatever asset we're taking on board is ready to be collateralized and does hold a substantial value as an investment product. So then the matching, so we skip the matching of the traditional lending. Anyone who tokenize the art can have access to our lending pool 24/7 instantly.
Yeah, I see there's very smart solution for the liquidity and the lending part. So talking about blue chip artists, another characteristic of it, it's the stable of the like relatively stable price for blue chip art. But after it's on chain, how does ArtWise manage the price fluctuations or collateral risk in volatile markets?
We don't we so first of all we can avoid extreme market condition, that's for sure. And but we do filter, I think we're very, very sensitive to the quality of the art. And I'll say 99% of the art collection that's being submitted to us to, showing interest to participate into our protocol, were being turned down. It's not that we're trying to turn down everyone, but we just want to make sure all the artwork, all the asset that we're taking on board are again legitimate and um, um, risk mitigate to the max. And we do have our secret partners in terms of valuation and authentication to basically mitigate all the potential risk of art as collateral. But I think that that's something I cannot share at the moment publicly because that would be our kind of secret.
Yeah, I see, I see. So for the aspect of a founder, how does success look like for you and AdWise at this stage of the journey?
So how does what?
How does success look like for you and AdWise at this stage?
Oh, how does success look like? Um, so we're launching in the end of Q1 next year, and so for short-term success, I think it will be a successful launch where lenders and asset owners are both happy and we fulfilled what we have promised. That's a short-term success, and for long-term, we like I mentioned just now, we're looking to work with museums, institutions to collateralize their art collections because museums, the most important assets or the most valuable part of museums and institutions are their collection. But right now, none of them are able to leverage that in the traditional market. And so the cultural environment of our, in Hong Kong or in the States or in many, many countries are limited or restricted by the government's budget, allocation of budget to the cultural um, department. So we want to change that by empowering them to be able to self-fund it with their own art collection. So that's a longer term vision and success.
Yeah, true. That's bring to a high level of a question is you talking about cultural value. So once otherwise it has a long-term success of collaborating with government, museums over the seas, how do you balance the cultural value of blue chip art and financial innovation? Do you see tension between them or they can just exist in harmony? What do you think about this?
Oh, I'm just gonna be very straightforward. I get this question a lot, even when I was working as a advisor, and I do know a lot of people in the traditional art industry. They they act like or they show up like they don't like the capital. They are against the idea of art as investment. But but we all know that without capital or without money, the art industry doesn't even exist. So, in my very, very personal opinion, it it has to be harmonized. And but of course, people can hold different opinions. But the fact or the truth is that this is an industry that's being promoted or being supported by money. Simple like that.
Yeah, true. Because financial incentives is always important to keep every industry running. So
Yeah.
yeah, I want to know, is there any story, interesting story, a concrete project from your client that can illustrate more about ArtWise impact at the stage?
Um, we are, so as I mentioned just now, we are working with one of the early collector that reached out to us um in last year, and she's also one of the person that inspired us to start this business. She so her family is from France, and they have some of very important European collections, and but apparently she's not interested in it, and she runs her own fashion business. And so we are working tightly with her on developing the solution. And she doesn't want to sell the collection because it's her grandpa's collection, and even though she doesn't understand anything of it, but she doesn't want to let go of it. So I guess from that process, um, it's quite fulfilling to see that we're developing something that people want, and the time and effort she's investing in talking with us and finding out the solution together is really encouraging. Yeah, I never thought about developing the business with the client together is like this, but yeah, it is so yeah, so I think moving forward, we're also going to oh, and also we're developing the solutions with family offices as well, because they are our major lenders, and they are also very new to art as an asset. So they have like so many questions, but um, we really try to work with like lawyers and regulators in terms of clarifying their concerns, and like trying to I feel like every party is working together to really make it happen. So yeah, that's something I really enjoy.
Yeah, it's exciting to hear how ArtWise built a whole ecosystem of RWA of blue chip art. And Grace has already mentioned a lot of future plans for ArtWise, but just one more question from me. From your perspective, or the perspective of artists, collectors, lenders, what is still missing in today's RWA or the whole digital art ecosystem that you would most like to see improved?
Liquidity.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. True.
I think in one word, liquidity. Because every time I go to the conference and panels, everyone is talking about liquidity. I feel like liquidity is like love. It's everyone's talking about it, but no one has seen it. So, instead of reaching out to people, to the blockchains, some blockchains claim that they do have liquidity, but I mean, I'm just gonna expose here, like they don't. And they they yeah, it's very different from how they market it. So I mean, coming from traditional industry, and I'm very thankful that there are two um teammates from from our company. They came from traditional banks, so they do have connections to um the TradFi people, like family office and private credit. And I felt like we're just breaking the ground to to talk to to talk to people and pitching this new idea. But I'm also wondering how other tokenization projects deal with liquidity and how do they get liquidity. But yeah, I feel like for the whole industry, that is a um major challenge right now.
Right, right, right. Especially blue chip art, it's really a unique class of RWA. So people need to know what's blue chip art first, and then they will see the liquidity in it.
Indeed.
Okay, so yeah, I still have a lot of questions, but I think it's time for the audience who would like to exchange thoughts with Grace as well. So let's see if any audience got a question or some insights to share to Grace. If you're one of them, please click the microphone button below and request permission to speak, and I will approve your request. It's a rare opportunity to learn more about being a Web3 founder. So, any question from the audience? Yeah, sure. Just let me ask. So at this point, as we checked it before, you're still looking for a lot of lenders. So besides finding lenders or approaching family offices by your partners, do you see any other ways to approach lenders from like overseas or all over the globe?
We do had conversation with family offices from Europe, in particular Switzerland. I think Switzerland is very developed in terms of blockchain and fintech. So it's much easier to talk to people from that area because they already know the background, they know everything. You just have to sort of um, complete the whole narrative to them. But whereas I think Hong Kong looks like it's very happening in terms of blockchain, but the TradFi people in Hong Kong are still quite conservative to the whole idea. So that's how we are feeling. So if anyone's looking for liquidity, I feel like Europe is the place to go to. They're very open and they're very interested in what Asia is doing as well.
From the perspective of Asia, do you find there's a lot of lenders from maybe China or other countries in the APAC?
Mm, Against RWA, maybe not, but in blockchain, China is quite engaged already. But they invest in different stuff um um like how do I put it? They invest in blockchain fund and DeFi fund instead of like actual RWA lending pools.
Yeah, I see, I see. Okay, that's a very insightful sharing from Grace. So it's about the time to end our interview. So thank you for your wonderful insights, Grace, and it's a memorable night with you. And at this moment, I wish you an early happy birthday, Grace, because
Uh,
her
thank
birthday is in an hour.
thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Great. So I'm sure everyone has gained a lot from you and now has a deeper understanding of the Web3 industry, especially RWA in blue chip art. In Mighty DAO, we'll continue to invite Web3 professionals around the world to share their career experiences, challenges, and success tips in the industry. If you have any takeaways, please share them with us on Twitter. This interview will also available on our broadcast channel, Inside Web3 Korea, which can be found on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you'd like to listen again, feel free to do so, and share the recording with your friends as well. Don't forget to follow Mighty DAO on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Threads for the latest information about Web3 Korea. Once again, thank you, Grace. Thank you for your time and insights, and thank you to all our participants for joining us tonight. Have a wonderful night. See you in our next Web3 Korea series. Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Grace.
Bye bye.